All right, the Indianapolis Colts here.
This one's obvious.
At number 11, it's got to be Benjamin Morrison, right?
Yeah,
it's got to be Benjamin Morrison. They desperately need help at corner. I really like Ben Morrison this year. He's been solid, again, to start the season so far. Nothing spectacular, but I think he's a really, really good lockdown corner, and I think Indianapolis is desperate in that secondary right now. And I'd almost think that they should be taking a corner no matter where they are, honestly, in the first round of the draft. So I'm taking Benjamin Morrison here to the Indianapolis Colts. I think they really, really need help in that secondary. They've been beat up in that secondary too, but even when they're healthy, they still aren't a great cornerback unit overall. So I think Ben Morrison here is the pretty obvious pick for the Indianapolis Colts.
Absolutely. Kenny Moore is a great player in the slot, but they are just struggling. They've been struggling for years on the outside. Morrison he's so fundamentally sound in coverage. Yeah. I just love the way he plays in coverage. He's so fluid. He fights to the football. Could use a little bit of work on his tackling, but when you can cover like that, I don't even care. Take him and run the card up to the podium.
There's one here at Dalton at 12 I think is there's a player here on the big board that would fit a need for the Chargers, and the head coach of the Chargers once called this player God's gift to football. Or will you be taking him here at number 12 overall?
This is one of the hardest picks.
There's two Michigan players that kind of fit this, actually.
They do, actually. Yeah. But the problem is, for me, there's two other players sitting here that I think higher on the board than Colston Loveland. I don't think I could reach for Colston Loveland in this scenario.
What about Kenneth Grant? God's gift to football, according to Jim Harbaugh.
I think the Chargers have to go offense here.
Okay.
I will be honest with you. I am between Luther Burden and Ashton Jeanty.
I think you got to go Burden just for value, positional value. I think. I know what you're getting at.
Ashton Jeanty in this offense.
And also, don't screw yourself for the 14th overall pick with the Dallas Cowboys either. That's just a layup too.
It's a thought. It's a thought. It's a thought. This is really hard.
Harbaugh's going to love Jeanty.
Ashton, Jeanty. Let's just throw this scenario out there, okay? Even if I don't pick him. Ashton Jeanty with Harbaugh and Greg Roman coaching.
Yep.
With Alton Slater and that offensive line, the way they're playing when they're healthy, and the amount that they want to run the football. Mm-hmm. Ashton Jeanty, this is the part to me where I go, Ashton Jeanty might set records. LaDainian Tomlinson type records if he went to the Chargers. It's the part that it makes me think about. I go, do they make this statement and go full tilt? And I know J.K. Dobbins has been good, but he's off the injuries, and we don't know yet that he's a full season workhorse back. We kind of know that Jeanty this is hard. But then they're very short at receiver. Mm-hmm. Ladd McConkey is their best receiver right now. I don't think there's any debate about that.
Yeah.
Did Harbaugh ever draft a running back high with the Niners? I don't think he did.
I'm trying to think because he inherited Frank Gore,
and I think he had Kendall Hunter. He took in like the second or third round.
Yeah,
I'm gonna. This is tough. I'm very 50-50 on this, but I'm gonna lean in on the receiver. I think they can manufacture the run game the way that they block it. I'll take Luther Burden here, and we start making a core of receiver with Luther Burden, Ladd McConkey, and even Quentin Johnston, who's playing better this year, better than he did last year, right? I think what Luther Burden adds in their passing game, because right now I do watch the Chargers even in their wins, and I go, man, they're getting nothing out of their passing game. And the idea was, okay, we have Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert together now. I'll go with Burden. I think that's the number one type of guy that they need. And then McConkey complements it, and Johnston gets downfield. We'll start getting Justin Herbert rolling too. We'll find running backs later in the draft. It's a stacked running back class.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think what will happen, though, I could see Harbaugh just taking Jeanty and being like, we're going full Michigan right now, which I would understand. But
that'd be fun.
It would be. I could also see Kenneth Grant being the pick there. And I'm also debating Kenneth Grant here at 13 to the New Orleans Saints because I think the offensive line has played a lot better. I think they can still use help in the interior, but there's not an interior lineman here I would take at 13 overall. So I'm looking at a couple guys here. I'm looking at a guy like Kenneth Grant because their D tackles are not good right now. I'm looking at guys like Nick Scorton, James Pierce Jr. at edge defender as well because also they can use help at edge. I think D tackle's a bigger need, and I like Kenneth Grant a lot. I think
you want one piece to convince you on that. I believe if he's not number one, he's in like the bottom three. Brian Brzee in the middle there. I believe he has the lowest run D grade of any D tackle in the league right now.
Yeah, he's struggling.
It's a problem. He's a decent pass rusher, but you're absolutely right when you say they're struggling on the interior and run defense.
Yeah, Nathan Shepard has not played well either. Yeah. I think they have more at edge. I think edge is a really big need for them too. But I'm going to go with the highest ranked player on PFS Big Board right now. That is Kenneth Grant for defensive lineman at least. So I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant here to New Orleans. I think their biggest need is at D tackle, and according to Trevor, the best D lineman available is a D tackle. So I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant here to the Saints.
It's reasonable. I got to be honest with you. I absolutely would have thought about him for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Because of all the things they need on their team, they need that the most. They need a Kenneth Grant who can just plug holes and so they don't get gashed in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have necessarily an offensive lineman in this range. I could reach Ariante Ursary. Probably not. There's not really any. They need.
You got to do it.
It feels like, even though that's an incredibly talented player at the top there, but the Cowboys don't need secondary help, even though the secondary hasn't played great.
Brandon Cooks is probably gone too. Like Isaiah Bond could be a nice ancillary piece for them. But I think you got to go Ginty, right? You got to do it.
It's Ashton Ginty.
Yeah, and Jerry's going to take Ashton Ginty if he's here.
It's Ashton Ginty. Yeah. They just look, as much as the Cowboys' run D has been a story, their lack of rushing on offense and just the lack of any sort of balance on offense is a huge problem. I mean, look, you look at their running back room: Rico Dowdle, Zeke Elliott, Deuce Vaughn, Dalvin Cook. There's nothing in the running back room right now, and you have a guy like Ginty sitting there who might be a generational running back prospect. I know we hear that once every few years, but this is a freak of nature. I mean, he might set all sorts of records this year. What he's doing, he might carry Boise State to the playoff. It just feels too obvious. And the Cowboys have other needs. If Kenneth Grant was on the board still, I would have thought a lot harder about this, but there's not another player at a position the Cowboys need where I go, oh, yeah, absolutely. Ginty's the guy here in Dallas.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Okay. Next up is Chicago Bears. I think they really need help on the O-line, but I don't. We interviewed Ariante Ursary, awesome guy. I don't know if I would take him here at 15 overall for them, although I'm really debating it for them. But I'm going to look elsewhere. I think you still use help on the edge and interior defensive line. So I'm going to go there, I think. Because I think Montez Sweat's a really good player, but outside of them, they don't really have too much. They have the 11th worst run defense grade right now in the NFL. And they're, okay, they're doing pretty good as a pass rushing team at least. But I think run defense is where they have struggled this year. So I'm going to go with the best run defending edge at the top of this big board right now, which I think is Nick Scorton. I think James Pierce Jr. has a little bit of a higher ceiling than Scorton, and I still like Pierce a lot, even though it's been kind of a slow start to him this year. But Scorton is just an all-around better player right now, I think, than James Pierce Jr. He's a really good pass rusher, really good run defender. I think Scorton would be a pretty easy pick here for Chicago, just because I think he brings an element in that run defense they really need right now. So I think Nick Scorton here to the Bears makes a lot of sense.
I think it makes a ton of sense. Absolutely. I think the Bears, their secondary is spectacular. I think they could use still a little more help in run defense, like you mentioned. I think that is a good pick for sure. I think you put him across from Montez Sweat, then you got some depth guys in there too, DeMarcus Walker, Austin Booker, who's played well early in his career, especially in the preseason. I think Scorton, though, that's a dimension where, I think last year when you talk about they had a shot maybe to take Jared Verse or somebody like that if they wanted to. This year they do it. That's solid stuff right there. I can't hate that, getting the Bears defense even better. Still got to work on the offensive line, but maybe that's a second-round thing in this scenario. Packers. I think there's a value play here. Look, the Packers, they signed Xavier McKinney. I know they still need some more help on the offensive line. Signed Xavier McKinney, and he's been great. I think they get the second piece here in their secondary at safety with Malachi Starks. Look, you get the best safety in this draft down at 16. You get to pair him with Xavier McKinney. To me, that immediately becomes the best pair of safeties in the NFL. Starks is a versatile piece. They got Javon Bullard in last year's draft, his former teammate, who's a versatile piece. I think McKinney is spectacular in Jeff Hafley's defense. He's mixed it up a little bit, too, from what he ran at Boston College. With all that single high he ran at Boston College, there's a little more mixing of coverages. Starks is so good, though. He's fifth overall on the board. He is a top 5 to 8 talent, and to get him at 16, I think for the Packers at a position where they're still building. They got a lot of depth guys. They took, I think, 3 safeties in this past year's draft, but Starks is a superstar, and you can't. If you have Jair Alexander, you have Malachi Starks and Xavier McKinney and all these guys now in their secondary, that's a loaded group. I think it's too good a value play not to take Starks here.
Yeah, top 5 player on PFS Big Board right now, falling to 16. I know he's a safety, so he probably will fall a little bit, but that's a really good value for Green Bay at 16. And him and Xavier McKinney together would be lethal. Probably maybe the best safety duo in the league.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be incredible. San Francisco 49ers here at number 17 overall. I do not think they'll be this high on draft day. I think they'll figure it out as the season goes on and they get healthier. But there's some interesting players here for them. I'm looking at I'm probably looking at Ariante Ursary here. I think they really need help on the offensive line. Ursary is a guy they could use help at guard and tackle, and Ursary's a guy that I think if you need him to, could play guard in the NFL as well. He hasn't really done it too much in his career. He's been mostly a left tackle for the Golden Gophers, but he's a guy that we just interviewed, so check out that interview. And he's played really solid this year, honestly. He's actually improved a lot as a pass blocker after being the best run blocker, one of the best run blockers in college football last year. In fact, I think his run blocking grade last year was 3rd in the country, and the only 2 above him were Talisa Fuanga and Joe Alt, who were top 15 picks in the NFL draft. So he's a really good run blocker, and the pass blocking is actually coming along really nicely this year. He just came off a rough game against Michigan, but then again, anyone's going to look rough against Michigan. They might have 3 first-round defensive linemen on that defensive line. But yeah, I think Ariante Ursary here will fit a big need here for the 49ers, and I think they're probably really going to be targeting offensive line in this draft. So I think Ursary makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, he does. He's wicked athletic, former track and field guy, like he talked about, super strong. His shoulders are unbelievable. The way when he gets extension on guys, it's crazy. I think in this scheme, move him over to right tackle. Maybe he takes over eventually on the left side for Trent Williams. I think that's a great pick. I think the Niners in the offensive line, their pass protection too, is still the biggest question for me as to whether or not they can win the Super Bowl. But you make a pick like this to move him over to right tackle and then figure it out from there. I think it's a great pick. Baltimore here at 18. Similar thing. There's one thing for me that's holding Baltimore back from winning a Super Bowl, and I think it's wide receiver. I think it's right now they have Zay Flowers and not much else, and they're relying on 2 good tight ends, which is great. And if Derrick Henry, obviously, if he runs every week like he did against Buffalo, they're not going to have a whole lot of issues. But to me, they get to the playoffs, and every year this happens, they don't have enough wide receivers. There is a guy sitting right there at the top with possibly 4.2 speed that can take the top off and make you get out of single high against the Ravens. I have to take Isaiah Bond here for Baltimore. I think it's the biggest weakness on their team outside of Zay Flowers. I think they need a vertical burner like this. They need depth at receiver. They need a home run hitter, guy who can take safeties out of the box. Isaiah Bond is the guy for them.
Yep. I think that's a great pick. That's exactly what I would have done for the Ravens as well. So Isaiah Bond, highest ranked player on the board, and fits a big need for Baltimore as they need another guy opposite of Zay Flowers, obviously. Philadelphia here, I'm really between 2 players. I'm between Abdul Carter and James Pierce Jr. for the Eagles because I think they could use help at edge. I think I still like Pierce more than Abdul Carter, even though Carter's higher on the big board and Carter's coming off an unreal performance.
I don't think there's a wrong pick here.
No, I don't.
I might be real with you. And the way the Eagles take trench players and make them always work, I don't think either one would be a wrong player. I think you have your pick of the litter here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with James Pierce Jr. He's a guy that we had number 1 overall in our first mock draft back in April or May actually. I think James Pierce Jr. I'm still sticking with him. He's been kind of slow to start the year, but I think there's still a lot there with him. So it's close between him and Abdul Carter for sure, but I'm going to go with James Pierce Jr. here to the Eagles at number 19.
It's good stuff. I think if you got a player with his level of talent at 19, you'd be absolutely living. You'd be awesome.
You get your Jets now at 20. This worked out.
I didn't even realize before we did this that that's what I get. Jets have more issues than people think. Their defensive line is very thin. Mike Williams only on a 1-year contract. Could think about a receiver here. There's 2 guys I'm looking at here for sure. Well, you know what? 3 guys I'm looking at here. We getting Aaron Rodgers? We getting another year Aaron Rodgers?
I think so. Probably. It'd be weird if he retired that for this year. I'd be a little surprised. But you could develop a guy though behind him if you wanted to. I don't know if you.
Not that. I'm not going that route. Jordan Travis, calm down. There's 2 guys that I really like.
Ibuka would be fun. I was looking at
Ibuka would be fun.
Loveland would be good.
Kevin Winston would be fun to fill in at safety because they're kind of average at safety. You want to go with a weird pick? Give me Colston Loveland.
Love it.
Let's go Colston Loveland.
I love it.
Let's get the Jets a tight end. Let's get him. And Tyler Conklin's good, and I don't know if he's got another
Let's
year.
get Colston Loveland a quarterback, too.
Let's get Colston Loveland a quarterback in an offense that opens it up a little bit. I think Aaron Rodgers would really like Colston Loveland for just 1 year, and then he's a guy who, if he's as good as we think he is, he could be one of the best tight ends in football. The Jets could be working with whatever future quarterback they could be working with. Could have Colston Loveland, maybe Garrett Wilson, maybe Breece Hall, long-term, all of that. I think it adds another dimension, and I think you've seen if Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett and whoever are to all stick around for another year or 2, Rodgers had a lot of success running some 2 tight end sets and doing some things there. Loveland looks better as a run blocker this year, and you and I both think he's by far the most talented tight end in college football. I'll take Loveland for the Jets here, add another weapon for their offense.